Ladies and gentlemen, and this is the most important man of D-Day, Leonard Bud Lomell. Okay, this is like I guess one of the most important video, suggesting from the title, because D-Day was like one of the most crucial days of any war, like the biggest war of them all, World War II. D-Day was like really instrumental, and among them, the most important man. So it's just like layers and layers, like basically the most important man in war ever, I'm guessing. This is going to be one awesome story, because that's how usually Federation stories goes. He talks about like unknown people who should be known, but they somehow are unknown. I mean, there are like niche group of people, historians, or people who like history, who not historian but just like history and just reads a lot, probably know that, but it's not like a general knowledge or like mainstream knowledge, which kind of pisses me off. Like, this kind of important people, are you serious? Right? Hollywood are all these shitty people like making this fictional shitty stories. You can't make movies like this, come on. So let's do this one.
Who is the most important man of D-Day? If you get on the internet or you get in a history book and you ask that question, you're going to overwhelmingly be hit with the answer. It's General Eisenhower, which makes sense. He's the officer in charge of the entire operation, but that's not really what we're asking now, is it? I mean, when you have an Amazon package getting delivered, you're not exactly worried about what Jeff Bezos is up to make sure you get your package, right? You want to know where that mail carrier is. You want to know who the person is on the ground actually getting the work done. 156,000 men took to the beaches at Normandy, and all of them had an incredibly important job. Take this objective, secure that area, make sure this happens, make sure that happens. But out of all of those missions, one of them had to have been deemed the most important. What is that mission, and who is the man that went out there and got it done? That's what we're asking. Today we're talking about Leonard Lomell, aka Bud. Despite being one of the first men wounded on D-Day, he quite literally shrugged off his gunshot wound and proceeded to lead his men into combat for 3 straight days with virtually no food, no water, and no sleep to accomplish what is deemed as the most vital aspect of the D-Day assault, according to General Omar Bradley. And we're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor.
That is insane, man. He got shot very early on, then with no resources, no food, no nothing. Every single story is like something out of like a book or something, right? It's so insane. And I don't think like you can really compare Eisenhower and like Jeff Bezos that way, but I get what you mean, right? Like there are like, yeah, obviously the man who like sits on the war table and like figures shit out is like instrumental, right? Man at the head of anything, right, is like really crucial, otherwise everything crumbles. But let's not take away from the people who actually do the job, right? There's too many stories Federation's told where like one guy or like even squad of people does a job that even armies couldn't, because armies are incompetent. Look at the wars today with the Ukraine and Russia wars, right? Where Ukrainian soldiers are like really driven and Russian soldiers are not that driven. Like you can see the numbers, like how 8 Ukrainians versus like a ton of them, somehow 8 Ukrainians wins. And other people basically either defect or run away or things like that. Why? Because it's like a driving force, right? So people on the ground matters a lot. Usually they are the one who like goes, under the media or something. Like nobody talks about them. Usually just like the top brass that everybody talks about. People go to rich.com/TFE or go to original video page link, and from there support this channel.
To the video. All right, our story begins on January 22nd, 1920, when Leonard Lomell was born in Brooklyn, New York. Shortly after that, his parents would move him out to New Jersey, and that's where he would spend the rest of his childhood growing up. He's the youngest of 4 siblings, having 3 older sisters, and both of his parents are first-generation immigrants from Norway. And like pretty much everybody else that fought during World War II, he grew up during the Great Depression. And as I'm sure you can imagine, being the son of 2 first-generation immigrants during the Great Depression was not really that great of a time. Because of that, his childhood was extremely busy. When he wasn't going to school, he was playing sports. He played football, he boxed, and he played baseball. And when he wasn't doing that, he was working. If he wasn't sleeping, it was go time 24/7 throughout his entire childhood. Leonard was straight up hustling his entire childhood. He had his own business where he would catch clams and fish and sell them to local restaurants. He also worked as a caddy at the local golf course. He also ran the local bingo hall. And in addition to that, he even had a job as a...
So he was playing an RPG game, right? There's a big deal in Skyrim where they're like, oh, look at that at fishing. People used to do that in real life. Right, like we basically, oh, this is video game, this is so fantasy. No, people used to live that life. In today's modern world, most people can't even think of doing that. Like, how I'm gonna go to fish as a like an activity I do? No, I don't think so. I'm gonna play video games on my mobile. There you go.
a delivery driver for a laundry service when he was 16 years old, and then he got fired after about a month because they found out he didn't have a driver's license. If there was money to be made, he was going to do whatever he had to make it. Despite all of that, he still made time to have a 1-hour piano lesson every single day. Fast forward, he graduates from high school, and when he gets home, both of his parents sit him down, and he remembers this because it's the first time he's ever seen his dad cry, as his dad tells him, "Len, I don't have any money to help you go to college." Now, his parents are both older at this point to have a son just graduating high school. His father is 69 years old, and they have been poor his entire childhood, and he's watched his dad work his ass off the entire time. Len was not fazed by this at all. Not only did he not expect his parents to have money for him to go to college, he fully intended to go off to college, work, and send money back home to help support them. And that's exactly what he did. He went off and he applied to every single college that he could, and only one of them was willing to give him an athletic scholarship, and that was Tennessee Wesleyan College. So that's where he went to school, and then when he wasn't playing football, he was working as much as he could to send money back home to his parents. Now, while he was going to college, the draft had started, so he figures, hey, I'm probably going to end up getting drafted anyways, so I might as well go off and try to join one of the military academies, because then I get to become an officer and I'll make even more money, which is going to allow me to send more money back home to my parents. So he wants to start applying to all the military academies, especially West Point. The problem is he goes up to the recruiter or the liaison and he's talking to him. He has all the paperwork, but he needs his birth certificate and he doesn't have it. Not only does he not have it, he doesn't even know if he has one. It's not uncommon for people born in the 1920s and the 1930s to just not have a birth certificate. A lot of people were born at home and he honestly has no idea. And mom and dad don't have a house phone, so he ends up calling his older sister and is like, hey, do I even have a birth certificate? Do you know?
Look, man, here's the thing, right? Even in right now in India, the rural places, people like birth certificate, like I know the place I was born, like there are way too many people. So I can see in 1920s in America, like birth certificate was like back then. In today's like connected world, whenever we think about like how could you not have your birth certificate? But it's 1920s, right? Like world was very different back then. So it's surprised to me that military actually have this like a like criteria like that, like you must have a birth certificate, because won't that cut all the like recruits down a lot, right? I don't know.
Do mom and dad have it? Do I need to go figure out how to go get one? What's the deal here? And his sister gets like all quiet and awkward over the phone, and she's like, I think it's best that you just come to my house and we'll talk about it. So he's like, all right, this is weird, but whatever. So he sets up a time and he goes over to his sister's house and they meet up. So he shows up at his older sister's house. She answers the door. She's being all awkward. She's got tears in her eyes. And he's like, what is the big deal? I'm just trying to get a birth certificate.
Oh,
what is
father,
going on? She kind of sits him down and she's like, bud, you were adopted. And he's like,
first one.
Okay, cool. So like, do you have the birth certificate or not? Like he was completely unfazed by the entire thing. And his sister is like distraught and she's crying and she's like, what? You don't care? And he's like, no, not really. I had two terrific parents and great sisters. I love you guys. It makes literally zero impact on my life. I'm just trying to get this birth certificate so I can go off to West Point. How do I go about that?
I mean, his life has been like strenuous all this time. Like the poor, like barely surviving. He was worried about his parents that, like nurtured him his whole life. And now he's worried about like, how am I going to make money to send them back? Like, why would he care? Like, I mean, when you really think about it, like, you don't remember when you were born. Like, do you remember how were you like in a month old, a day old, a week old? Of course not. You don't remember those shit. So why would you care, like your biological mother or parents? Like you don't even have the image of them. You don't care. You just move on. Like, I don't care. Like, these are my parents, right? Just give me a certificate.
Getting it. And his sister is like, okay, look, I'll get the birth certificate from mom and dad. You just have to promise me that you won't let them know that you know that you're adopted, because it means a lot to them, because they really do want you to know that you're their actual son. And Bud, just completely unfazed still, is like, yeah, okay, cool, great, just get the birth certificate. I got stuff to do. Okay, great, wonderful, bye. While his sister's figuring that out, he finishes up, graduates from college in 1941, moves back home to New Jersey, where he starts working for the railroad as he starts getting the rest of the paperwork together and applying to all the military academies. And then before he can get accepted into a military academy, he ends up getting drafted, and so that kind of blows a hole in his entire plan.
Oh no! No! I'm ruined!
So Bud goes off to training and he absolutely crushes it for multiple reasons. One, that's just the type of guy that he
is. It's insane. He knew he was going to get drafted. Like, he did get drafted. Like, okay, at least he has hindsight.
Is if he's going to do something, he wants to do a good job at it. And for two, he's smart. He realizes that the U.S. military is expanding rapidly. And with that rapid expansion, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for promotion. And if he's the best guy around, he's going to get that promotion. And when he gets that promotion, he's going to get more money, which means he's going to have more money to send back home to mom and dad. So not only is he just coming at this as, you know, I want to do a good job, I want to survive, this man is already competing for his family to eat food back home, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, is an entirely different level of motivation that a lot of other recruits simply just don't have. Because of that, after he completes training, he goes off to his unit at the 76th Infantry Division, and he rapidly climbs the ranks. In a matter of like a year, he achieves the rank of first sergeant, which, if you don't know, is absolutely crazy. Like, by today's standards, that's literally impossible. I think the fastest...
What? It's the down one here. What?
Absolutely crazy. Like, by...
Look at how many of them, like, all the way here. Like, only below 2, right? First sergeant. Oh my god. Sergeant major. Commander, sergeant major.
Today's standards, that's literally impossible. I think the fastest that you could make first sergeant today, if you did everything 110% correct and you were a literal prodigy, would be 9 years. And Leonard Lomell just did it in like 1. So because he was such a hotshot, he gets offered by his chain of command to go out to this high-speed school known as Ranger and Combat School, which is a precursor to...
I don't want to pause too much, but is it because, like, in today's world, technology is much higher? You have to, like... like, I mean, US was a powerhouse in World War II, but today, I mean, come on, it's a whole another level with the logistics and everything. So is it because of, like, you need to know too many shit that you can't just become that fast? Doesn't matter what you do, you need to know a lot of shit. I'm guessing that must be the case.
What we know today as the Army Rangers. If you don't know, the 75th Ranger Regiment today is a Special Forces unit, and the easiest way I can explain this to you is they're essentially America's sharpest blunt instrument, okay? They're America's premier shock troops. They basically just took the top 1% of all the grunts, stuck them in one unit, and then they send them out to destroy things on impossible missions. And that's basically how they pitch it to Lomell. This is a school that you can go to, become a better leader, a better soldier, and then also they're going to be picking some of the best guys out of it to go into this new Special Forces unit called the Army Rangers that are going to get sent out on the toughest, most dangerous missions. And obviously he agrees to do it because it's going to make him look that much better come time for his next promotion. So he goes out to this Ranger course. There's 200 recruits. They strip them down. They take their rank off. All they have is this matching jumpsuit, and they beat the holy hell out of these guys for weeks. They barely feed them. They barely give them water. They're making them do hand-to-hand combat training all day long. They're doing ruck marches. They're doing physical training. It is an absolute nightmare.
This is nothing like the recruiting brochure.
By the time that training's over,
Yeah, that is insane. Military does that. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, they are trying to break you. That's the whole point of that. It's not like, oh, wait a minute, they're trying to test your limit. I'm gonna surpass their limit. They don't have limit. They are breaking your limit. So even if you do more and more, they'll just keep going until you actually break. And they're trying to see, like, when you do break, how you behave, how you work. Because it's not like how good are you when you're like well fed and perfect. It's like one of the worst condition and worst mental element. How you gonna perform? Because in like massive war like World War II and like any type like that's what's going to be, right? You know, if you're in like World War One, that was like World War One always gets overshadowed by World War Two, but in some way World War Two was really like fucked up in a different way because it was first in a lot of ways, right? The level of trench warfare that saw nothing was like equal to that before. That trench sweeper and like those mustard gas, like a lot of first things like grenades, right? Tanks, like and machine guns and all that, right? People were just caught off guard. So it was like after that, like people just like, okay, let's see how these people work in the worst condition they can be.
Over, that class of 200 high-speed soldiers has been whittled down to 60, and Leonard Lomell is one of them. Not only is he one of the 60 that made it, he is one of the very best, and he is personally asked by the general in charge if he wants to become an Army Ranger because they are standing up the 2nd Ranger Battalion, and they are looking for new recruits. And to the general's shock, Lomell actually tells him he'd have to think about it. This kind of catches the general off guard, right? I mean, this is a big deal. He just went through Ranger school. Surely he wants to be a Ranger. Why wouldn't this guy say yes immediately? So he kind of pushes him on it, and Lomell tells him like, hey, look, I'd love to do it, but here's the deal. At the end of the day, I'm here for whoever's going to pay me the most money. If I go back to my old unit, I'm going to be a first sergeant. I don't want to come into the Ranger unit, have to take a pay cut and be like, you know, a corporal or just a regular sergeant or something. So, you know, unless you guys are going to make me a first sergeant and a Ranger first sergeant pays more than a first sergeant back in my normal infantry division, I'm going to have to think about it. At which point the general's like, cool, you're a first sergeant in the Rangers and you'll get paid more than them. At which point Lomell is like, dope, I'm in. And just like that, Leonard Lomell is now the very first sergeant.
I mean, in America, this shouldn't be an issue, right? Like, American capitalist mentality is like everywhere, even in the military. So like, if your incentive is to just make money and like you're really good, you're gonna excel at ranks. I mean, that just makes sense.
Of Dog Company of the 2nd Ranger Battalion. So Lomell goes, he gets all his boys from Dog Company, they start training right away, and you gotta remember, they're standing up the 2nd Ranger Battalion at this point, okay? It is a complete and utter shit show. When you're standing up a new unit, it's not just like you throw a bunch of guys together and you're like, hey, you're on a team now. No, a unit has its own culture. It has its own standard operating procedures. They have to build all of that from the ground up, and Leonard Lomell and his guys in Dog Company are there for every single second of it. And right out of the gate, it's rough. The Army's having a very tough time finding the right officers to lead this unique unit into battle, right? They're constantly rotating out battalion and company commanders, trying to find the right guys. And then they finally end up finding the right man to lead the 2nd Ranger Battalion, a lieutenant colonel by the name of Big Jim Rudder. On his very first day, he calls the entire battalion in and gives his, introductory speech on his mission and what he's trying to accomplish with the unit. And I'm paraphrasing here, but basically what he says is, look, here's the deal. I'm going to train the holy hell out of you guys. I need you to do everything I ask you to do at 110%. And in exchange, I'm going to do absolutely everything I can for you. I'm going to have your back. I'm going to be your guy, and I'm going to get you as much leave as I possibly can. If you give me everything you got, I'm going to give you everything I can in exchange. And that is just the beginning of the leadership clinic that Jim Rudder is about to put on. He starts having monthly gripe sessions for the entire battalion to air out their grievances and what they see wrong with the battalion and everything going wrong around them. And he's willing to listen to every single man under his command, even the lowest ranking private. One of the first things the Rangers complained about was that the food wasn't very good. So Jim Rudder had the cooks sent back to cook school to relearn how to do their job. Then they came back a couple weeks later and the Rangers still said the food wasn't good enough. So Jim Rudder sent them back to school again.
We'll have the spaghetti with a side salad.
Okay.
If the salad is on top, I send it back.
On another occasion, a private at one of these gripe sessions has the balls.
I mean, why not put a request to replace them? Like, why keep sending them into school? I guess, like, that's not how you do.
To stand up in front of the entire battalion and say, sir, when I volunteered for the Rangers, I was told that every Ranger would receive a pocket watch, and I wasn't given one. Now, to us today, this seems kind of silly or petty, but you have to put this into context, right? Back in the 1940s, watches were very much considered a luxury item because they didn't have little tiny cheap digital watches that you could buy for $15 and know what time it was. The only watches around at this time were mechanical watches and more commonly automatic watches, which are the ones that are self-winding with all the little tiny gears and springs on the inside. They're very hard to manufacture with these tiny little itty bitty pieces. Due to the difficulty of manufacturing and the fact that the Army is growing exponentially, they simply can't manufacture watches fast enough to be able to give every person.
Yeah, I mean, 1920s, you can't really compare that with modern world, just the scale of industrialization, right? How much shit we make today. Like, even like 3 decades before now, like, it's very different. Like, recent 2-3 decades, it's just like exploded. Not to mention recent decade and like 2 decade at least. That's just like whole other level, right? So in today's world, like, you can just make crap, throw it away, and like you have like 1,000 more crap you can just buy. That wasn't the case in like way back then, 100 years ago, right? That's just insanity. Back then, like, things are not just easier to manufacture that way. Things are not just easier to come by. So things have more like a personal value than anything else. So watch, like, oh, this is watch. In today's world, people try to do that with the luxury watches, like, oh, it's Omega and this and that, right? But yeah, in today's world, like, oh, watch, like, I just buy it from Amazon for like few dollars, I throw it away, and here's another one. That wasn't the case back then. Oh, look at that Apple Watch, I'm gonna buy another one when the new one comes out. That wasn't the case back then.
Person in the military a watch, despite the fact that the Army does have a standard issued watch, the A11. So at this point in time, not everybody's getting a watch. They're reserving them for the people that need them the most. People like pilots, people in leadership positions. They're definitely not giving them out to every lowly private that's just there to take orders. But this isn't just a lowly private. This is a private in the 2nd Ranger Battalion, and he was promised a watch to be a Ranger. And because of that, Jim Rudder takes off his personal watch in front of everybody and gives it to the private. So obviously Jim Rudder is an incredible leader, but more importantly than that, he's also a visionary that has all kinds of crazy training that he's going to have these Rangers do. And one of the most important things that he actually does is he goes and he gets his hands on all of the German firearms, right? He gets MG42s, he gets burp guns, he gets all the German weapons, and he trains his entire Ranger battalion on how to disassemble, reassemble, clean, and fire all of the German weapons, because he knows that they're going to send him into a mission and they're going to run out of ammo, and they might might have to start picking up guns off of all the dead Germans that they've killed. So he wants every single man in the Ranger Battalion to be able to use those weapons. In addition to that, they also do a bunch of chemical warfare training in case the Germans want to break out the mustard gas like they did last time, and then after that, they mostly focus on climbing. And the way they go about that is they end up shipping over to Great Britain, and the entire battalion is staying inside of this hotel that's on a cliff overlooking the ocean, okay? And they get there, and they have the battalion meeting, they explain that we're doing climbing training, and then Jim Rudder walks all the guys. There's like this carved-in staircase that goes down this 80-foot cliff that goes down to the ocean. He's like, these are the cliffs that we're going to be climbing. Also, this is the only time we're using that staircase. And everybody is kind of looking around like, what? How are we going to get down here if we're not using the stairs? Every single morning to get to training, the Rangers have to go up to the 3rd story of the hotel, tie a rope to the radiator, throw it out the window, rappel down the side of the hotel, run across the yard, scale the chain link fence where the cliff is so nobody falls off, and then rappel down the 80-foot cliff just to get to the beach to get to training on how to climb. And once they're down there, they do all different types of climbing. They're climbing with grappling hooks and ropes, they're climbing with nets, they're free climbing. Any and every technique they have available, they're getting super good at. And around this time in training, one of the sergeants for Dog Company accidentally drops an entire ammo bag on the men down below him, and somebody ends up getting injured. The company commander ends up ordering Lomell to bust this guy down from sergeant to private, which is a big deal, getting demoted from NCO all the way back down to private. It's a big pay cut. It sucks. Lomell doesn't want to do it. It was an accident, but he's ordered to do it by the company commander, so he has to go ahead and he does it. And this sergeant, now private, doesn't take it very well, and he says something along the lines of, you know what, that's fine, first sergeant. Once the battle starts, first sergeants always get what's coming to them, and I'll see you in battle. Kind of like this veiled threat, and Lomell's like, okay, whatever. Sorry, you're upset. Anyways, moving on. They get back to training, and they're climbing more. And
I'm sorry, what the fuck? You just walked past that? In the battlefield, there are enough danger. You don't need danger from one of your own people. That is one of the biggest no there should be. So he shouldn't have just taken that lightly. He should have just like, you know what, you're fired, get out of here. Like, but you just sucks. Like I don't have to look over my shoulder because I'm worried you might like cause problem for me or even shoot me or whatever the fuck you're planning. But because in the battlefield, who knows what's happening, right? One of your people can just shoot you and just like, oh, look, the enemy bullet killed him. Like, it's already danger alone, man. That's fucked up. Is this gonna be the case moving forward? Come on, man.
While they continue their climbing training, they find out that not only are they going to be partaking in D-Day, but they're going to be given the most dangerous and most important mission of the entire D-Day assault. Overlooking the American landing sites of Omaha and Utah Beach for D-Day, there is a point known as Pointe du Hoc, and on top of it is 6 German 155mm artillery pieces. If these artillery pieces are allowed to remain functional during the landings, it will lead to the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans and potentially the sinking of Navy vessels because it overlooks the surrounding ocean as well. The problem is the only way to get up there to destroy that artillery is to climb a 110-foot cliff face while the Germans are shooting at you. This is deemed absolutely impossible by military intelligence. One of the military intelligence reports literally says, and I quote, 3 old women with brooms could repel a landing force at Pointe du Hoc. General Bradley, in his memoir, recalls this order as the most difficult thing he's ever asked of.
I mean, look at it. It's an insane cliff face near water. So it's like clean visibility. It's not even like you can hide somewhere. And like talking about like height advantage, right? Like what is it called? Like elevation advantage. Way too much elevation advantage. People can just look at that, somebody's climbing and just shoot at you. So yeah, they're right, like that, you know, jokingly, but yeah, anybody could defend that place because like how are you gonna do that?
Anyone in his 40-year-long career. Because of this, they give the Rangers anything and everything they think they might need to be successful, and they're allowed to come up with whatever plan they think is going to work, because at this point, they're basically the climbing experts in the U.S. military. They get them aerial footage so they know the terrain. They build them 3D models so every single Ranger in the 2nd Ranger Battalion can remember every little tiny aspect of Pointe du Hoc. So the plan is they're going to show up to Pointe du Hoc and try to disable this artillery prior to the first wave of D-Day, because remember, that's the entire point point. They have to get this artillery disabled before everybody else starts landing on the beach, right? So not only are they being given this difficult task of climbing a 100-foot cliff under enemy gunfire, nobody else is there, so they get the Germans' undivided attention the entire time. So the obvious question, how on earth are you actually going to do this and have any amount of success? Hear me out. We're going to take all of the landing ships and we're going to mount gigantic grappling hooks onto rocket launchers, and we're just going to beach the ships and fire rocket-propelled grappling hooks up over the cliff and start climbing as fast as humanly possible. And then as soon as some of the guys start making it to the top of the cliff and getting in a firefight with the Germans, and the Germans have their hands occupied with that, we're going to bring in another landing ship that's got a fire truck ladder on it that can reach to the top of this cliff. We're going to beach that and then use the fire truck ladder to funnel more guys up the cliff even faster. And at the top of that fire truck ladder is going to be a guy with 3 Vickers machine guns. So he's just going to pop up from over this cliff edge with 3 machine guns and start mowing down Germans. It's the craziest fucking plan I've ever heard in my life.
So what do you need besides a miracle?
Guns. Lots of guns.
No one has ever done anything like this.
That's why it's going to work.
You remember a couple of minutes ago when I said the Rangers are the U.S.
Those experts said like, okay, this is impossible. They didn't thought of this level of shit. All the way like fire ladder, like fireman ladder, and machine guns, a ton of like rope to climb. I was just about to say like, what if there's like a MG42 gunner there, German gunner? As soon as you climb, they just mow you down. But like they have their own machine gun now. Okay.
U.S. military's sharpest blunt instrument. This is exactly what I'm talking about, okay? Their strategy is to run face first into the German defenses and just be so fast and so overtly aggressive that they win anyways. I mean, could you imagine being a German?
What else? Like, what was that other story about? Like, was it in France or something? I don't know, like the climbing the cliff paratroopers. They did it at night or something. Maybe they could have done something like that, but this is too open. I think they would have like been caught anyway. So there is no other strategy than to go head on. I don't know.
German soldiers seeing a bunch of American ships roll up and they're like, oh hey, the Americans are here, and suddenly gigantic fucking grappling hooks strapped to rockets start landing 100 feet up this cliff next to you. You're like, what the fuck is going on? And then as soon as you're able to get your shoes on and grab your gun and go do something about it, a fucking fire truck ladder pops up from over the side of this cliff with a dude with 3 fucking machine guns. He's only got 2 arms. What does he need 3 machine guns for? This is the most American shit I've ever heard of in my entire life. I mean, we've all heard the expression, it's faster to switch to your sidearm than it is to reload, but we've never heard the expression, it's faster to switch to your tertiary machine gun than it is to reload your first 2 machine guns. So that's really the entire game plan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was like, it's easier to reload, but imagine that, right? Like, survivor of that place goes back to like, you know, like Germany or something, in front of Hitler or something, and just like scarred lying there. Sir, they had 3 machine guns. He only had 2 hands, and just like goes unconscious, and Hitler's like, what the fuck?
Straight up brute force and ignorance. Hit the enemy so hard, so fast that the fight is over before they even know they're in a fight. All right, D-Day, this is the part where I wish I could tell you that they rolled up, everything went according to plan, and it was quick, violent, and over. We win, hooray. But that's not what happened, because it was a shit show the entire time. Here's what's going on. It's supposed to be about an hour and 20-minute boat ride in a British LCA. Think of it as like a bigger version of an American Higgins boat, and we've got the British Navy piloting these ships. And while that's going on, we've decided we're not just going to use the element of surprise. Instead, we're going to pound Pointe du Hoc with aerial bombardment and naval bombardment from the USS Texas and the USS Arkansas, and then we're going to stop bombarding it right as the Rangers roll up. That way, by the time they get the courage to poke their heads out, the Rangers have already scaled the cliff. That's the plan that we're going with. And the first problem is half the Rangers have food poisoning. Last night for dinner, they gave these guys hot dogs, and one of the batches of hot dogs was tainted, and now about half the Rangers are puking inside of the LCAs. And on top of that, the seas are rougher than they anticipated, which is making it even worse. It's so bad that water is getting inside the ships, and Leonard Lomell literally has to order all the men in his LCA to start using their helmets as a shovel to start bucketing water out of the boat so it doesn't sink. This is supposed to be about an hour and 20-minute boat ride to get from the big ships all the way to the beach, and they're just sitting there going up and down in the seas. Dudes are sick, they're puking, they're looking over at Pointe du Hoc, and it is just getting pounded by the British RAF dropping bombs and American naval gunfire hitting this point over and over and over again. It's so loud these guys can't even hear themselves think. One of them actually leans over to Leonard Lomell and screams at the top of his lungs just so Leonard could hear, I wonder if they know we're coming. As they get closer and closer to the shore, both Lieutenant Colonel Rudder and Lomell realize that the British coxswains that are driving these boats are taking them to the wrong drop-off point. It takes a while, but they argue with the British. They're telling them they're going to the wrong spot. The British don't think they are. The Rangers are like, trust me, we've memorized every square inch of this beach. We know exactly where we're supposed to be. You need to take us over there. So they change course, but they're wasting time, right? Because they're bombarding Pointe du Hoc, and they need to be able to land and start climbing that cliff the second.
Oh my god, that is so insane. Like everything is based on time now, because obviously like they're told like this is your time window, right? And it's crucial because as soon as like artillery starts, all the Germans gonna like run with machine guns and things. So only way this plan works better than like element of surprise, because there's no element of surprise anymore. You're bombarding the shit out of them. So only way this would work is like you do it exactly right time. But if the time gets wasted, artillery stops and you're still on the way, you basically screwed. It's worse than the element of surprise. Without going artillery, it would have been better. So this is just fucked up. And imagine that, like you have food poisoning, like you gotta go into this kind of battle, right? You have food poisoning sometimes and you have to travel somewhere, like, oh my god, this is gonna be long ass travel. This is life and death scenario. With machine guns and crazy shit, you have to climb and you have food poisoning. Like, okay, if your stomach is not with you, like even your like energy and like your strength, everything goes out of the window. You just feel just weird. Now you have to do all this shit.
Those bombs and naval gunfire stop. As they begin making their way to the right drop-off point, the seas are so rough that some of these boats are getting so much water in them that two of them actually end up sinking, and the other boats have to make the hard decision to just keep pushing forward because they don't have time to stop and save these guys. Another Navy ship's gonna have to come in after them and pick them up later. And just like that, before they even hit the beach, they are already going from 225 Rangers down to 180. By the time they reach the beach at Pointe du Hoc, they are 40 minutes behind schedule, meaning that the bombardment has ended 40 minutes ago, and the Nazis have had about 30 minutes to regroup and get ready for this attack that they know is coming. This is already catastrophic to the success of this mission, but there's nothing they can do but keep pushing forward because they can't do it in
30 minutes. Nazis can go out, see what happened, regroup, have some snack, and then you come.
Different day. There's 156,000 other men that are about to hit the beaches, and if they don't take out these guns, they are going to get bombarded with 155 millimeter artillery fire. And to make things worse, because the Rangers are 40 minutes behind schedule, it means they've got about 20 minutes to scale a 110-foot cliff under enemy gunfire, get up there, fight the enemy, and destroy the artillery before everybody else starts landing on the beach.
Let's go to work.
Lomell's boat is one of the first ones to beach itself. They drop the door. He goes running out first. He's going to lead his men into combat. He's supposed to be in about ankle deep water. He takes one step and sinks. He's completely consumed by the water. In hindsight, he thinks that one of the bombs from the RAF missed its target, created a crater right where the water line is. It filled with water, and that's what he was sucked into. But his men end up pulling him out, and as soon as his men get him pulled out, he gets shot in the back. And Lomell, having been shot and almost drowned in the matter of a couple of seconds, doesn't really know what happened, so he turns around thinking that he'd been shot, and the first person that he sees is that private that had threatened him. I'll see you in combat, First Sergeant. His brain immediately thinks, this motherfucker just shot me. So he goes and grabs this kid, and the medic and all the other men have to pull Lomell off of him. We're like, no, he didn't shoot you. He didn't shoot you. It was the enemy. So Lomell turns and runs into combat. His men go running after him, and Lomell and the rest of Dog Company manage to scale the 110-foot cliff.
Are you sure he didn't shoot you in the back, like, and he's just supposed to be there? Like, did people sound like people like, oh, he can't shoot? I don't know, man. And he shot you from 110-foot cliff? Come on. The private shot you, right? I mean, I don't know.
Under enemy gunfire in under 10 minutes. Okay, just for the record, I can't get my wife and kids in the car in under 10 minutes, and these guys got 30 men with guns and 50-pound backpacks up a 110-foot vertical cliff under enemy gunfire in 10 minutes. That's crazy. Lomell's Dog Company and Easy Company are the first ones up the cliff, and the minute they get up there, they are immediately disoriented, and all their plans go right out the window. Remember, they studied the terrain. They know what it's supposed to look like up there, and it does not look like that now. The Allied forces have bombarded Pointe du Hoc with 380 tons of ordnance, okay? What they're looking at now resembles the surface of the moon. There's no time to make a new plan. The clock is ticking, and they have to destroy these guns, okay? Given a lack of instruction, you have to resort to destruction. All of the Rangers proceed to dive into one of these massive craters from a bomb. They said these craters were so big that they could easily fit 15 to 20 men. Half the men in the crater pop up and start returning fire to the Germans, giving cover for the other half of the men to jump to the next nearest crater. Then they begin returning fire so that the other half can catch up to them, and they begin using bounding or leapfrogging to go all the way to where one of these guns are. They can see the massive gun barrel sticking up in the air, pointed at Omaha Beach. They finally get to the gun and they hop down in the artillery emplacement. It's not a gun, it's a fucking telephone pole that's propped up to look like a gun barrel. Immediately, Lomell is like, what the fuck is going on? But we can't wait. We have to keep going. There's potentially 5 more guns and we need to take them out.
Deception. What if that was trap? What if, oh, this is so fucked up. They didn't thought of deception. Of course, Germans thought of that. Like, what if somebody storms it? Like, we have been fake shit. Oh, that's insane.
So they begin bounding again to the next gun. It's a telephone pole. The next gun, it's a telephone pole. Soon, they've been to all 6 artillery emplacements, and all of them are telephone poles. The guns aren't even here. Lomell is furious. He's got steam coming out of his ears. Was all this for nothing? Were the guns ever here? Was this just a clever ploy by the Germans and the US military intelligence fell for it? Did he just risk his life and all the lives of his men for literally no reason at all? And as Lomell's trying to figure out what to do next, there's this underground fortress that they didn't even tell him was there. They just found it. So Easy Company ends up going in. They're going to clear out the fortress while the rest of Dog Company goes and tries to find these guns. And if they can't find the guns, they're going to go to the road back behind Pointe du Hoc and try to hold it to prevent German reinforcements from going to Omaha and Utah Beach. So Easy and Dog Company split up. Dog Company heads out to go defend this road. And as they're making their way there, Lomell notices a set of ruts in one of the roads, like something really heavy drove through when the ground was wet. He wants to go investigate, but also he can't.
He pressed right mouse button to like start his Witcher senses. Oh, look at this big tracks. Oh, it takes special type of person like make shit like, okay, decide shit what to do, what not to do, because you're it. What you gonna do? Like talk to like your, you know, like command or something. You're the command at that point, right? Everything turned out to be shit. Now you have to figure out what to do. You have to figure out game battle plan. Like if there's no guns, okay, I guess we can at least like hold the road and shit so reinforcement doesn't come through. He has to like make up his own missions. That's insane.
Literally accomplished nothing so far, and he has to go defend this road and prevent reinforcements. He has to do something to help the guys out on the beach. So what he decides to do is he's going to send the rest of his company to go defend that road. They all know what they're doing. He grabs his best buddy, Jack Kuhn, and him and Jack are going to go investigate these ruts real quick. It's probably nothing, but he has to know. So Lomell and Jack take off running, following these ruts, and after about a mile, it actually leads to all 6 of the German guns.
I told you I would find you.
Now, they don't know this at the time, but the reasons the Germans moved the guns to an alternate location was because all of the Allied bombing raids that took place prior to Normandy had orders that they weren't allowed to come back to Great Britain and land if they still had bombs. If they had bombs left after their mission, they were ordered to drop those bombs in the English Channel, or they could drop them on any German military installation they could find along the way. And as it would have it, by sheer coincidence, most of the time, the last German military installation before going into the English Channel was Pointe du Hoc. So it had been getting pounded for weeks and months by just random bombs at random times. And because of that, the Germans realized that they needed to move the guns to an alternate...
Hold up there. Nobody told this to Americans? Like, okay, by the way, this is the place we've been bombing all the time. Because Normandy is like collective effort in a way, right? Like everybody's intelligence there, British and everybody. They didn't say like, oh, we've been bombing this shit. Is this going to be instrumental in your like storming of the beach?
Location, and the American and Allied forces had no idea. From there, the Germans were planning on having the men in the underground tunnel network at Pointe du Hoc be able to call back targeting information to the further back guns, and they'd still be able to fire on all the beaches. And the only reason these guns aren't firing at this exact moment is because Easy Company is down in that fortress fighting the Germans. And apparently the Germans that are supposed to be manning these guns haven't heard anything yet, because they're still back 50 yards away dicking off at their little camp, leaving the guns completely unmanned. So they both sneak up to these gun emplacements, and Lomell tells Jack, hey, give me your thermite grenade, keep your gun pointed on those guys over there. If they start coming towards us, light them up, and that'll be my signal to hop out of the hole, and we'll try to run off back to Dog Company. So Jack postures up with his gun pointed at the Germans off in the distance. Lomell hops down in the hole. He starts using these thermite grenades. Now, it's a grenade, but it doesn't go boom, it's not loud, it just burns at 4,000.
Thermite is insane. Like, you need to find some, like, I know about thermite, and it's just like, you know, who was like that? I think it's Veritasium. I think that's the channel, right? Thermite is insane. Like all the process of it, how it works. Like thermite bomb, basically it's like unrecoverable. As soon as they put that thermite bomb inside, the whole barrel is gone. Like, you have to throw it away. You can't recover that. That's the end of that, right? It's like, like, I don't know what is equivalent of that. Like, filling the basement with concrete level shit, right? It just, like, that barrel is gone. It will just become hard metal at that point. That is insane.
Degrees, and he takes one of these grenades, shoves it down the first gun barrel, goes to the next one, shoves another thermite grenade down that gun barrel. He's out of thermite grenades. Every ranger was only issued one. He knows he's gonna have to go back and get more thermite grenades and come back to destroy these guns, but he can't leave 4 guns perfectly operational. Anything could happen between now and then. So what he does is he takes his field coat off, wraps it around the buttstock of his rifle, and uses it to quietly break all the sighting equipment that he possibly can, and he's just jamming shit and all the traversing mechanisms, doing everything he can to ruin these guns the best he can without more thermite grenades. Once he's satisfied...
Yeah, just cause 3 chaos meter is rising up. 10, 10, 10, music is playing in the background.
Him and Jack run back to Dog Company, get more thermite grenades, go back to the guns. Thank God they're still not guarding them, and they finish destroying the other 4 guns. So this is great news. The mission's accomplished. Now Dog Company just has to go hold this road for 24 hours until they get hit with reinforcements from Omaha and Utah Beach. As they're walking back to Dog Company, Jack kind of looks over at Lomell and is like, it's probably a good thing we didn't get in a firefight back there. I've only got 1 magazine of ammunition. At which point Lomell is like, what? Why? He's like, I lost it at some point during, all the climbing and running around from bomb crater to bomb crater. So yeah, I've only had 15 bullets on me this entire time. And he's like, why didn't you ask me for some? And Jack's like, I don't know, I didn't think about it. Regardless, they make their way back over to the road to link back up with Dog Company. When they get there, Dog Company is in the middle of a fire.
I feel like he had his confidence in Lomell and his strategy. Like, pretty sure nothing's gonna happen, so why worry him about it?
Fight. Dog Company's on one side of the road hiding in some foxholes or a ditch or whatever. On the other side of the road, there's a house and a German machine gun nest that they're having this firefight with. Lomell gets in there, figures out what's going on. Basically, his entire company is planning on just bum rushing a German machine gun nest, and he's like, well, hold on. He's feeling pretty good at this time, right? I mean, he took out those guns basically by himself. He's got that main character energy flowing. He's like, all right, here's the deal. You guys stay here, hand me that bazooka, arm the charge in the back.
I was about to say, he's basically protagonist at this point. He just cleared the whole mission himself. Like, objective 6 artillery destroyed. I'm gonna do it myself. I don't need any people with me. This is basically how you in Just Cause, basically you have this mission, you are just kind of like whatever, like allies and who are there, right? Storm this place, you single-handedly do all the shit while they just run around. That's what happened here.
I'll take care of this. So they arm the charge in the back, hand him the bazooka. He goes running up, pops up out of the ditch with the bazooka, aims at the machine gun nest. They start returning fire. Lomell fires a bazooka. Click! His guys didn't arm the bazooka round the right way. So he almost gets shot, ducks back down into the ditch. Well, that was kind of it's only gonna work once strategy, so we can't really replicate that now. So it looks like we are gonna bum rush this machine gun position. So he starts getting his guys.
He's cartoonist at this point. He just ducks down and just looked at everybody. Why the fuck? And there's like bullets are flying because it's MG42. Fing, 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 fing. Like, why do this, right? You don't know how to load an RPG.
Ready, and he's like counting down, and one of his guys just like jumps the gun, like 1, 2, and he jumps up and goes to run. Germans open up with machine gun fire. He stumbles back into the trench and ends up landing on one of the other Rangers' bayonets on his thigh. So now he's another guy down just from him being a dumbass. So they get that guy bandaged up, leave him in the trench, and the rest of them go assault this machine gun nest, take it out. Now they've secured the road. From there, Lomell's got like 12 guys left. He picks his 2 fastest guys and instructs them to run back to Pointe du Hoc, taking separate routes. That way, if one of them get caught, the other one should, in theory, still make it back and deliver the message to Lieutenant Colonel Rudder. Mission accomplished. We've destroyed the guns, and I desperately need reinforcements up to hold this road. Luckily, both men end up making it back to Rudder. They deliver the message. He's super happy about it. The problem is all of the Rangers' communication equipment got damaged with all the water from the beach landing. In addition to that, they asked for more reinforcements to be able to hold Pointe du Hoc and secure the road. Unfortunately, there aren't any. What the Rangers have now is all they're gonna get. So Rudder sends Lomell's guys back to him with the message, hold until duly relieved. Not exactly what Lomell wanted to hear, but it's what we gotta do. So him and his men are just hiding, waiting to ambush anybody that's going to reinforce the beach. Luckily, after a couple of hours, more Rangers show up, about 50, 60 guys, and they line up along the road too. The Rangers are now spread out, covering about 300 to 400 yards of this road. About an hour later, an entire German battalion attacks, but they attack all the way on the other end of the the Ranger formation. Lomell and Dog Company are the furthest away from it, so Lomell orders his men to hold their fire and not give up their position. That way, they're there to surprise them in case they try to flank the other Rangers. The Rangers repel the attack fairly quickly, which tells Lomell he definitely made the right decision because that was just testing them. They wanted to know how many Rangers were there, where they were at, and what they were capable of. And now they don't know that Lomell and Dog Company are there to help too. About an hour later, the Germans attack again, and they attack so hard, so quick that they end up fracturing the Ranger line, and the other two
Yeah, I mean, World War II Germany, like, you know, they're like, by this point, like, they're like really strategically smart, right? So it's not just you're fighting some kind of a force like that, you're fighting someone who's like smart enough. So you need to be smart, like every decision you make, you need to think like, oh, they're going to be smart enough to realize that and just like work that way. And that was how usually it is, right? They try to do clever shit all the time, right? Look at the pole thing that they deliberately put that. That's not some coincidence to look like artillery. I mean, they try to confuse you. They try to like test you. Like, that's insane. That's one of the reasons World War II was that level of fucked up is because of shit like this. But yeah. Rebel, I'll do second part like tomorrow or something. That was the most important man of D-Day, Leonard Bud Lomell. Like, shit is picking up. We are at D-Day now. I hope this story has a happy ending and he survives or something, because it's just fucked up. But yeah, so far it's been awesome. He's been protagonist, destroyed 6 artillery. That's mission complete, I guess. 15-hour Call of Duty campaign is here. I don't know. There you go. Alright, I'll see you next time.